Let's just turn on my camera. Come
Sure.
on. Oh, there you go. I'm a little under the weather. I have COVID again, second
Oh,
time. Yeah.
oh,
Um, all my students have graduated. They're gone. Um, some of them got zeros. None of the kids in the videos got zeros, but some of the kids got zeros, and they still graduated. So I
sure.
just, I just throw up my hands and say whatever. I I did my best. The kids who um, um, I taught for this semester, I hopefully I armed them with the skills to be successful in university, and that's all I can do.
Yeah, I've been in that similar situation. You have to stick to your own ethics, right? And if the administration wants to change grades or pass someone, then that's really up to them. At least you've, done what was right.
Yeah, well, it's okay. I found a new job. I'm excited about that. So hopefully I can start the year on the right foot.
Nice.
Good. So
Perfect.
let's get down to brass tacks. Um, I do. I thought my video was okay. Now that was the last class of the year, so um, the girls really weren't interested in being filmed, so I kind of took them out of the shot. Uh, Bruce and Thomas were okay. I bribed them with lunch, and they got like frog or something, and I was like, okay, whatever. So but yeah, I think it went well. I think I hit all the marks that I had to. I was under the impression I had to give a um, um, another assignment because there's like the and projects in one of the marking rubrics, and so I just threw it in at the last minute because I was going over my prep, and
Okay.
when and Lexi mentioned that she was just looking if you did a project during the um, whole video, like all of the videos I had done, and I was like, yeah, but I don't want to be caught out, you know. I don't want to be throwing marks out the window if I don't need to, because the working with the community and the parents I can't do because the school doesn't allow it. So I need to make it up somewhere.
That's right. But it's also that you understand the importance of working with the community and the family and the parents and applying that later, right? It's not like you're ignoring it on purpose. It's just the circumstances.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Um, and I also, in my reflection,
Mhm.
I noticed that I had to do 9 and 10, so I kind of threw it in as an addendum. I didn't want to re-record or edit it in, so I did read the rubric, and then because I was like, we don't really do 9 or 10 in the classroom. You do it that's outside the classroom, so I just added it at the end.
Mhm. I saw that.
Good. So I'm ready for your feedback because I'm
Okay. So let's kind of follow the same pattern that we've always done, where you kind of tell me what went well, where you think you could improve upon, and then I'll give you my comments.
okay. I think class always starts off the same. I usually have a I wouldn't say it. Yeah, I always check in with the class,
Mhm.
and I think that's just a good way to set the tone. That's usually how we set our standards and our norms in the class. So I think that went fairly well. Um, I thought uh, I used instructional strategies that met the students' cognitive, linguistic, social, emotional, and physical needs. Now, I didn't
Mhm.
include a lot of the translated stuff, but I leveled my language uh, to their level, which I think is more important because in the fall they'll be in university and they won't have any options for translated stuff. So it provides them a safe space where I'm not going to use language that they don't really understand, but I'm still challenging them. But um, they don't have the crutch of having it translated. I did translate my rubric because there was some language. It's academic language
Mhm.
that they never seen before in their lives. So that's the only time I kind of like translated. I think I annotated that as well. Um, I offered differentiation. Allowed the kids not only to I gave them the options of using hard copies versus electronic copies. Um, um, I thought that that was okay given I've had these students since September, and I do differentiate, but I just don't do it consciously. I know what my students can do and what they can't do, and I put them in the best positions where they can be as successful as they can be. But success isn't always 100%. Um,
Mhm.
like Chris, if Chris gets like a 70, for him that's like 100, and that's something that I've really had to come to grips with. Um, although I do remember during my BEG, I got into it with a classmate because he said he wishes all his students graduated to become doctors and lawyers. I'm like, who's gonna pump your gas and flip your burgers? I mean, it's really nice to think all your kids are gonna be hyper successful, uh, white collar people, but society needs people on all the levels. And there's nothing wrong with pumping gas or flipping burgers, um,
Mhm.
if that's what you enjoy. So, like for Chris, he didn't. He got into his like 10th choice of universe. He's going to Malaysia because that's the only place I would take him. And I gave him my WeChat. I was like, dude, whenever you have a question or if you just want to like talk or you know, you just need someone to listen to, just send me a message, it doesn't cost you any money. And I'm always there, and he really appreciated it. He was the student I was the most worried about this year. Um,
Okay.
I think that's good. So I think I hit most of the standards in task standard two. We don't have special ed. Um, sorry,
Mhm.
there are special ed students in my classes, but they're not identified, so I really can't. I'm not a psychiatrist, so I mean
Mhm.
I have my gut feelings, but because the parents don't do anything about it, there's nothing that we can do. Um, although I did, um, I thought Nearpod was a much better avenue than let's say like a PowerPoint, because it made it more interactive. And usually I found that if you make accommodations for special needs, it actually helps everyone else out in the class. It it's a net positive when uh, you adjust things for a special needs student. It really helps out the rest of the class. Um, hmm, uh, I thought my classroom was pretty friendly, supportive. Now it was the last class of the semesters. It was actually the last class of their entire high school career. I was it. So their minds were kind of wandering. But you could see throughout my videos, um, classroom management was great. I tried to maintain uh, student-centered learning as much as I could, and I always listened to the kids and made sure they were listened to and heard and seen. So I think I did okay there. Content knowledge. Um, during the during the peer evaluation, uh, we were talking about how these people who committed horrible crimes. And I remember this from university, and my professor saying, they were like lawyers and judges and highly educated people, and they were committing these atrocities. So, I brought in some content knowledge from like higher level stuff and brought it into the class. Um, I wish there were the peer evaluation was on a lighter topic though. That was a that was a pretty heavy topic, even because we're talking about the Holocaust. And during the radio broadcast, it was about like 18 minutes in. Um, but I thought the kids did well, and I mean, I know this content inside and out, and I can talk for hours and hours about it. Um, did I use tech technology? I use high tech and low tech in my class. So I think I brought in a lot of different resources. Um, they had never done peer evaluation before in their 12 years of school, so that was something new for them. They really enjoyed it. After the class, they mentioned that they wish they had more time to do more of those because they thought it was really cool. Because they never felt so empowered to uh, dictate someone's grade, although I didn't have the heart to tell them that the peer evaluation was only 25% of the mark. They thought it was 100%. And I just let them go with that. I let them have the illusion of power because it gave them a good feeling of responsibility. Um, Using the paper maps and the maps on Nearpod because I figured out how the kids could go in and edit the Nearpod images. So that was really cool. The girls, they really wanted they really wanted to do it on the computers, but I gave everybody the option, you know. And then we didn't have color pencils, so the boys just wrote in Chinese the colors because it was one character as opposed to writing like red and blue. So I don't know. I thought I did okay, and then the rubrics I gave them the options to do that as well. Um, there were a bunch of formative and summative assessments. I would say that the peer evaluation was a summative assessment within a summative assessment because um, that's just how I saw it. There were like checking in, um, the quizzes, the map exercise. Those are all formative assessments. So I had a little bit of everything in the class because it was the last class of the year or the last class of the program. So I just wanted to do that. Um, I did modify the assessment. I allowed um, kids to use electronic copies if they felt more comfortable. They could use hard copies if they wanted. I've wasted so much paper, but it's my own paper, so the school really didn't care. Um, I'm just trying to outrun my sore throat here.
Yeah,
Um,
you're okay. I can pick up.
oh no, I got two more, and then 9 and 10. I think I I think I hit all the bases for 9 and 10. So we don't really have to dwell on those. It's just the ones in the class. Um, I think I used uh, effective strategies in the classes. I kept them engaged as much as I could. It was a little difficult given the circumstances. I wish I'd gone through with my original cohort because we would have been finished about 6 weeks before now. Um, and I'm really lucky that we got it done. Um, it was this like because we had school field trips and stuff and canceled school because COVID.
Mhm.
So I got really lucky, and I mean, you can only do what you can do, and then I think that hits every quite I monitored students, walked around when it was
Yeah.
appropriate. I know my students as well. Um, you know the students who like to be monitored, and you like the ones who are like, yeah, I'm okay. So, I mean, that just comes from experience, but asking questions and getting good responses, I thought was really well done. And finally, um, questioning, I think that was okay as well. Good.
Yeah, that's a fantastic summary. And I saw many of the same things you did. I would say this, I'm looking at my notes. Um, the strength of everything that you've done in this program is how you're organized. So one, your videos are great because you, especially with this one, you pinpoint it where you covered each standard, right? So it makes it so much easier for me to see how you've covered each standard. Plus, there's a little bit of a sentence or a phrase that goes along with it, which was nice. And then if you fast forward to your reflection, same thing, right? With the reflection, you're going through the standards like you did now, and just adding a little bit more detail. So that made it easy to actually match up your lesson with the standard. So I took more of an overall approach, right? So I actually I've gone through, I've looked at each standard, I've evaluated you on each standard, and I'm going to submit this hopefully as soon as we're done. But as usual, I thought the lesson began well because you were asking students how they were doing as they were coming in, even though end of the year. And I'm not sure how much they wanted to engage, but you're still making that effort because that's going to help, right? In the future, if you know that your students are tired, or if they're hungry, or if they're sad or depressed, or if they're happy, then you can kind of direct that lesson to either increase the energy level, decrease the energy level, or maybe just pivot to something that's more relevant for the student. So
Yeah.
I like how you do that. Like I said, it's a great way to judge the class's mood. Um, And then as the students were logging into Nearpod, I thought you did a good job just asking, is anyone having any issues, to make sure everyone can log in. And this way, you kind of waited till everyone was ready to go before you began the lesson, right? So it shows a lot of experience there, just kind of waiting, not rushing through things, not worried about, oh, I have to get through X, Y, and Z before the end of the class. It's kind of like, okay, let's make sure everybody's ready to go, and then we'll start the lesson. And with your students, I like how you used open-ended questions to try to draw them into the conversation. Sometimes you'd ask a close-ended question, you get a response, and then you ask them why after that. So then they had to expand on their answer. And you called on students by name, which is great. That'll work well in the future when you have like a no opt-out strategy, where you'll call on students, they'll have to answer, and then you kind of either guide them in their response or you wait for them to respond. So, I mean, that's really the beginning of the lesson. And also, I mean, throughout the whole semester, you're putting the information on the board, you're talking to the students at the same time so they can see everything that you're saying, which is perfect for this group of students. And as you mentioned, right, your tone is good, the pace of your voice, you're using known words, which is great for students whose first language is not English. And that works well. And as you said, if you're back home in Canada, it would be a little bit different. So I like how you can differentiate based on who you're speaking with. And I think you do it naturally, automatically, right? The those of us who've lived abroad, I think it just comes natural to go into that type of mode when you're speaking with someone whose first language isn't English. Um, oh, yeah. And then you also mentioned in your video how you had differentiated some of the responses in case students didn't have Nearpod, right? So I think one student was struggling with Nearpod, so then you kind of had an alternative for that. And again, it comes with an experienced teacher as well. I mean, you're not going to panic. It's not going to ruin your lesson. You just kind of pivot and have something else lined up for those eventualities. And this is kind of where you walked around and you offered support, right? Uh, throughout the lesson when needed. So that's kind of how I saw your lesson. I thought your lesson was great. I thought like you said, you touched upon all the NTAS standards, which is the purpose of this video. But I thought you did it in a natural way, right? It didn't seem clunky or out of place. It seemed to flow from the beginning to the end. And I like how you ended your lesson, right? Because most of the lesson that I saw, the students were in the front and you're talking to them and there's some, feedback, some give and take. But at the end, you actually, even though the assignment was individual, you actually put them in groups and they could collaborate and communicate. And that made it a little bit more dynamic for the students for that
Yeah.
lesson.
Um, because when I said there was one more um assignment, uh, I had to edit that. One of the kids was like, "But we have an exam on Tuesday." I'm like, "It's not real. Just go, just go with it. Just go with it." And um, they're like, "Okay, okay, okay." And then they kind of did that. But the girls, they did consent to being filmed, but they didn't want sound. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no problem.
but they were working, and Lexi had mentioned it's been a while since she's seen like Chinese kids smiling in class, because usually they're not the happiest bunch. I mean, they're happy because they're going, they got accepted to university, they're gone. But usually the kids here are fairly miserable because they're up at like 6:30 and they don't go to bed until like 11:30, and they're at school till 11:30 at night. So all they know is school, school, school. So I try um, in meetings with my administration, because they told me just like stand in front of the class and read a PowerPoint. I'm like, you could hire a Chinese teacher to do that. You
Hmm.
I try to give them as close to a North American classroom experience as I possibly could. If
Hmm.
everybody had a VPN, then I would be using like Class Dojo or PowerSchool. Even Google Classroom would be wonderful, because then I wouldn't have to have the kids read the Nearpod address on. I could just send it to a unified email system, and it would work so much better. But I think the school finally has understood, because the other teachers are starting to copy what I'm doing, and the other foreign teachers are starting to do what I'm doing in class, because they see it was actually effective.
Yeah, I mean, that's great to hear as well. And I could see it from the student's perspective because they are spending so much time studying that when they come in, it's like, time's super important for them. They just for you to tell them what they need to know so they can learn it and then move on, right? It's just like, listen, time is super important. Um, but I thought that was good. The only thing, and this is nothing against you, it's just the time of year and the students, but there wasn't a lot of energy uh, in the classroom. So if I
I
could just get,
Yeah, COVID, COVID. I was starting to get COVID at I've had it for almost 10 days now. It's.
mm,
I've been out of school since last week. I came in,
wow.
did my final exam, did graduation, and I've been in bed. No energy. Yeah. And also I teach right after lunch, and that's the worst period to teach. There, but there's nothing I can do, because I do teach them twice a week, but that's the
Mhm.
only that class I have time to get everything set up. Um, you know, get my phone set up, get the computer set up, so I'm not eating into recording time, because I've only ever recorded in one class period. So it's very it's teachers will tell you it's the worst period to teach, right after lunch. It
Mhm.
is. Um, I would rather have them at 8:20 in the morning, when they're, you know, full of carbs from breakfast, drinking tea, they're bouncing off the walls. I
Sure.
agree. But I mean, you gotta play who's in front of you. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And that's where, your game-based learning can come in handy, right? If that's something to think about in the future. But that really was my only comment. I thought you did well, and you've been teaching for a while, and you obviously incorporate a lot of these things into your teaching anyway. But going through the program, it just makes it a little bit more purposeful, and pointing out where you're actually doing these. So I thought you did really well with this, and I understand the limitations of teaching out east, and you have to take that into consideration.
yeah, yeah. So I think that's great. I'm about ready to fall asleep. I'm so tired.
It's
It's
well,
it's kicking my butt. I hate this COVID stuff.
well, you're done. This is it. I'm going to type this up. I'm going to submit this right now as soon as we get out of here, and then you'll have the mentor evaluation, and then you have that last
So
assignment for.
yeah, I have
Uh,
to do my self-evaluation, and
yep.
that's it. The data collection, um, I mean, there's not much I can do. They're done. But the one
Mhm.
thing I did notice in using data is something that data has never really driven my instruction. I'm more old school. I use the eyeball. I use
Mm,
the Mark One eyeball. I've used data a little bit more, but um, I tend to use it at the end of the semester to like gauge what I've done well and what
mm,
I could improve on. But I've seen that you can maybe I could do it in like 2 week cycles where I can just evaluate the students and then see what's working and what's not working.
mhm.
I think that would be um better. Um, I think that would be more effective use of time. That that's one thing that's changed over, oh geez, 2007. So that's what, 16 years since I got my BED. Um,
Wow.
so like things have changed. Like we didn't do student centered learning 16 years ago. We we looked at data, but not. It was like, you know, how to do a bell curve. That was like
Mhm.
it was
Mhm.
like math, and I was so glad there was no math component in this program. Um, because I still don't know how I'm going to pass my uh praxis math. Um, I think that's going to be the most difficult thing. Everything else should be fairly simple. The math part's going to be hard. But so I already did my data thing. I mean, they're gone. I can't use the data for that class anymore. I mean, I can use it for my own um, learning and my own personal growth. But
Mhm.
I'm not going to be teaching social studies in the fall. I'm going to be teaching kindergarten because that's where the money is here. That's where the money is. So I've taken a position at a international school teaching kindergarten, so my son can go into grade two with 22 classmates,
Wow.
and
Mm.
that's I can dance around a classroom and sing ABC if I can put my son in a better position. And when he
Excellent.
get when he gets older, he better appreciate the sacrifice that I made. Well, I don't mind. I've taught kindergarten before. I don't mind it, but it's not my favorite. But
Mhm.
for him, I'll do it. So
Perfect.
I'll use some of the stuff that I learned here, but they just required for a job that I had a teaching license, and this is faster than going back home and filling out paperwork. Because
Yeah.
when I started this program, I could get back to Canada, but I probably couldn't get back into China.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
so it just made sense to do it. So once I get my praxis done, and then I'll get my license, and then I'll have to remember to renew it every 4 years, and then that'll be good. That's good.
Nice.
But I will not take up any more of your time. Thank you very much for taking the time to be my mentor. Please remember to fill out all your mentor paperwork. Um, that would be great. And
That's a good point. So what will happen is once everything is signed off on, it's like an automatic um form that goes to everyone. So I'll sign off on it, your supervisor signs off on it, but it's done automatically. So we'll get that taken care of.
okay. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.
Yeah, and Andrew, if you need anything in the future, feel free to reach out.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yep, good luck.
Bye.
Bye.